The front door creaked open in the middle of the afternoon, and Armin Halim froze the moment he heard water running inside his small apartment, steady and unmistakable, echoing from the bathroom like a heartbeat that did not belong there. For a second, he wondered if exhaustion had finally broken something inside his mind, because he was certain he had locked the door that morning before leaving for work, certain that no one else had a key, certain that his life was too quiet, too empty for surprises like this. His hands trembled as he set down the grocery bag, sunlight spilling through the windows, dust floating in the air, while the sound of the shower continued as if nothing in the world was wrong. Before the fear could fully take over, his thoughts rushed back to everything that had brought him to this fragile moment. Armin was 34, a widowed single father raising his 7-year-old son Zayn, alone since a road accident had stolen his wife 3 years earlier. Every day was a careful balancing act between his modest office job, his son's school, unpaid bills, and the quiet grief that never truly left. He had learned to survive by routine, by predictability, by knowing exactly what to expect when he came home in the daytime after an early shift. And yet here he was, standing in his hallway, heart-pounding, realizing that life had other plans. If you believe that kindness and second chances can change lives, take a moment right now to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel Kindness Story. Your support helps stories like this reach more hearts. Armin moved slowly toward the bathroom, every step heavy with caution, his mind racing through possibilities. A thief, a mistake, someone desperate enough to break in just to take a shower. He thought of his son, safe at school, and felt a surge of protective fear. When the bathroom door suddenly opened, steam rolling out into the hallway, he found himself staring at a woman he had never seen before. She was wrapped in a towel, her dark hair dripping water, eyes wide with shock, frozen just as he was. The moment stretched painfully long, two strangers caught in a misunderstanding that neither could yet explain. Instead of anger, what struck Armin first was how tired she looked beneath the surprise, how her shoulders sagged as if the weight of the world had pressed down on her for too long. His instinct was to demand answers, but something held him back. Perhaps it was the memory of how helpless he himself had felt after his wife died, standing alone in a hospital hallway, wishing for mercy from a world that had none. The woman spoke quickly, apologetically, explaining that her name was Nara Qureshi, and that she had made a terrible mistake. She had recently moved into the building, confused the apartment numbers, and entered what she thought was her temporary rental. The water had already been running when she realized something was wrong, but panic had overtaken her. As strange as the situation was, Armin sensed the truth in her explanation. There was no malice in her eyes, only embarrassment and fear. He handed her a spare shirt so she could cover herself properly, turning away to give her privacy, his mind still struggling to process the absurdity of the moment. Sunlight streamed through the living room as if nothing unusual had happened, and yet something inside him felt shifted, unsettled, as though a crack had opened in the careful shell he had built around his life. Over tea at the small dining table, the awkwardness slowly softened into something more human. Nara explained that she had returned to the city after leaving an abusive marriage, carrying little more than a suitcase and a determination to start over. She worked as a freelance illustrator, taking whatever job she could find, and the apartment mix-up had been her first-day disaster in a long list of recent struggles. Armin listened quietly, his heart tightening as her story mirrored his own in unexpected ways. Loss, fear, and the loneliness of starting again were languages he understood too well. The days that followed should have erased that encounter into an odd memory, but instead, fate insisted on weaving their lives together. Armin ran into Nara again at the local grocery store during a bright afternoon, then once more near the school, when she volunteered to paint a mural for a children's charity. Each meeting felt less accidental, more like a gentle nudge from the universe. Zayn, curious and warm-hearted, took an immediate liking to her, drawn to her soft smile, and the way she listened to his endless stories with genuine attention. Yet Armin struggled internally. Letting someone into his life felt like betrayal to the memory of his late wife, and fear whispered that opening his heart again would only invite more pain. He carried guilt like a second skin, questioning whether he deserved happiness after surviving what she could not. Every smile he shared with Nera felt both comforting and dangerous, a reminder of how easily joy could be lost. Nera, too, carried her own battles. She often stayed late working on illustrations, chasing deadlines that barely paid enough to survive. There were days when her confidence faltered, when memories of her past threatened to pull her back into darkness. And yet, in the quiet afternoons spent helping Zayn with his drawings or sharing simple meals with Armin, she began to feel something she had not felt in years: safety. The true test came one afternoon when Armin received a call from Zayn's school. His son had collapsed during recess, a sudden asthma attack that left him struggling to breathe. Panic took over as Armin rushed to the hospital, his hands shaking on the steering wheel. Nera, who had been nearby, followed without hesitation, offering silent support in the waiting room, holding Zayn's backpack, whispering prayers under her breath. In that moment, Armin realized how deeply she had already become part of their lives, how her presence had brought calm to chaos without him even noticing. Zayn recovered quickly, but the scare left Armin emotionally exposed. Sitting by his son's hospital bed in the afternoon light, watching Nera gently adjust the blanket, he felt something inside him break open. He understood then that love did not replace loss. It grew around it, honoring the past while allowing the future to exist. The fear that had kept him guarded began to loosen its grip. As weeks passed, their bond deepened quietly without dramatic declarations or promises. They shared stories of their pasts, their regrets, and their hopes, always in daylight, always grounded in reality. Nera helped Armin rediscover small joys he had forgotten, like taking Zayn to the park after school, laughing under the open sky, or cooking meals that filled the apartment with warmth instead of silence. Armin, in turn, gave Nera something she had never truly had before: respect, patience, and a home that felt safe. Just before the ending, a special request to comment. Tell us what moment in this story moved you the most and why. Your words mean more than you know. The turning point arrived quietly, without fanfare, on an ordinary afternoon. Armin came home early once again, but this time there was no fear in his chest. Nera was in the living room, sunlight catching the colors of a half-finished illustration spread across the table. Zayn was laughing beside her, crayons scattered everywhere. The image struck Armin deeply, a vision of the life he never thought he would have again. Not perfect, not untouched by pain, but real and full. In that moment, Armin understood that the stranger he had once feared was never an intrusion, but an answer to a prayer he had been too afraid to speak. Nera had not entered his life to disrupt it, but to remind him that healing often arrives disguised as chaos, that hope can walk through the door when you least expect it, even in the middle of an ordinary day. As the afternoon light faded gently into evening, Armin felt something he had not felt since his wife's passing: peace, not the absence of sorrow, but the presence of purpose. He knew there would be challenges ahead, misunderstandings and moments of doubt, but he also knew he would not face them alone anymore. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your engagement helps spread messages of kindness, healing, and second chances to those who need them most. And as Armin watched Nera and Zayn laugh together, he realized that sometimes the most beautiful beginnings come from the most unexpected moments, when life dares you to open a door you thought would remain closed forever. and daylight reveals that love, once lost, can find its way back home.